This is John NG here, and I'm here asking some questions with Ben Cusack. I work with a lot of medical researchers, and some of the common questions that have come to me is, when a researcher or a professor has a spin-off idea, is thinking about commercializing technology, what are the steps, the process, the grants, or what are the things that they should be doing when they do set up a company, and what kind of grants are available to them?
Thanks, John. That's a good question. What I find with the government is that they are very low risk when they give out grants. They don't want to be seen to be giving out, $100,000, $500,000, $1 million to a company and then have that money wasted, or the company shuts down. With low risk, you need to be able to demonstrate success. So a medical research or someone who's been focused purely on research, they've got very little experience in running a business. So it's normally businesses are the ones that get the grants, not so much an individual researcher. While they may be eligible for many grants, many competitive grants, it comes down to who you're competing against. Who would you prefer to give money to? Someone who has never run a business, hasn't got any management team behind them, or would you give the money to a company that's been around for 10 years, turning over $5 million, exporting in 20 countries, and got a HR person, an IT person, finance, all admin. So they're very low risk. So they're a going concern. That to me is a very low risk approach, and that's where the government would invest their time. So in order for the medical researcher to get to that position or to be as competitive, they've got to lower their risk. So what I suggest is either you form up with other entities to commercialize that technology, or you get investment, you get your patents, you get your IP protection, and you form or get investment to form that bigger company. And you might have a business manager or CEO that has commercialized before, so you can then go to get that sort of money.
So, I mean, for a lot of medical researchers with, quite an insular way of doing things, who have been very dependent on grants and government subsidies in the past, how would you guide them in a way to develop those industry collaborations, or even get investment from other industry collaborators?
First of all, you've got to have your IP protectable. You've obviously in an industry where you are generating IP, and that's a general path to go down. And then it is to speak to existing entities, like other spin-off technology that may have come out, and speak to who they've been getting money from, and get some tips from them to make that step away from a research institution or a university. And then they can introduce you to other people in their network in order to get that first level of funding.
So, I mean, what kind of grants do you see that, some early stage technology companies applying for? Like, what is there like a chronological sequence of do this grant at this stage, do this other grant at some other stage? What have you seen that works well?
Yeah, I have. So the general process I tell people to go through is, so from years, say 0 to 2, that's when you've got very little money and you may be using sweat equity. So sweat equity means that you're investing your own time, but that time has no cost to the business. So you might be having a full-time job and you might be working after hours. So in those 2 years, there isn't much funding available for pure startups. But once you set up a company and you're paying yourself as an employee or a contractor of that company, your time then has a value and a cost, and you can look at getting the R&D tax incentive, which is a rebate for conducting R&D. So that's the first one. If you're developing a product that is easily distributable, like a software or any IP, and you can market that product overseas, you can look at getting the export grant, which is referred to as the EMDG, or Export Market Development Grant, and that can give you 50% back for your marketing costs. So that's probably the step number 2. And then the third one to think about in probably years 5 is look at the accelerating commercialization. So it's similar to the R&D tax incentive in that you can get some of your money back. So this grant can give you 50% funding, pretty much upfront before you spend the money. So the R&D rebate gives you the money after the end of the financial year. Accelerating commercialization can give you 50% back, but you are competing against other companies. And that's why I say that you're better off waiting till year 5, because you have got a track record of commercialization, of success, of revenue, of a team, and of a board. So once again, it comes back to that risk factor. If you compare that with a company that has no track record, I'm much more going to give my money to a company that has that track record and is low risk.
With CEOs or researchers that are spinning off a company, they've got a million things to do on the fly. What is a good time to be talking to someone to actually do the R&D tax incentive?
Certainly having knowledge of it. So from day one, it's about recording your activities and recording your costs against those activities. So setting up the structures to enable that to happen when and if you start incurring costs. That's a good time to have a chat, and that may not happen for 2 years down the track that you start claiming the R&D tax incentive, but you've got good systems for recording all your costs. You're not just throwing receipts into a shoebox.
And is there a cutoff amount of money? Like, is there a you must spend over this X amount of dollars within X time frame? Can you give a little bit guideline for people who aren't sure about how much they should spend or how much they should keep with the investor, and how that money should be tranched so that they can get the best out of the R&D tax incentive?
So how much money they ask for from a funder is determined on what they need to do with their business. But in regards to R&D tax incentive, the minimum is $20,000 spent on eligible R&D activities. In general terms, there's no maximum how much you can spend on R&D, except for larger companies. But if you're spending large amount of money, you would have a bigger team and you'd know more about it anyway. So just spend what you need to get to that MVP so you can start making money.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Ben. I think we've got some solid tips on what a researcher or new spin-off technology company might do. Thank you very much, Ben.
Thanks, John.